What if I told you one of the biggest teenage rock stars of the 1970s was already falling apart before she was even old enough to drive? Before the fame, before the screaming fans, before Cherry Bomb made her famous around the world, Cherie Currie was just a quiet girl from California trying to survive a broken home. And by 17 years old, she had already lived through addiction, exploitation, violence, and a level of fame that destroyed people twice her age. Most people remember the image first: the platinum blonde hair, the corset, the fishnets, the teenage girl fronting the Runaways like she owned the stage. But behind that image was a scared kid, completely unprepared for the world she had been thrown into. Cherie Ann Currie was born on November 30th, 1959, in Los Angeles, California, and grew up in Encino with her twin sister Marie. From the outside, her childhood looked normal. Inside the house, it was chaos. Her father was a World War II veteran battling alcoholism and trauma. Her parents constantly fought before finally splitting apart. After the divorce, her mother moved away, and Cherie stayed behind with her father. And here's where it gets important. Cherie spent most of her childhood feeling invisible. She constantly compared herself to her twin sister, who seemed more confident and outgoing. Cherie later called herself the Runt. That insecurity followed her everywhere. Then she discovered David Bowie. For teenagers who felt different in the early 70s, Bowie felt like proof that being weird could actually make you powerful. Cherie became obsessed. She copied his hairstyle, studied his music, and escaped into glam rock completely. Soon she started hanging around the Sugar Shack, a wild teen nightclub in North Hollywood, filled with future musicians, rock fans, and industry people looking for the next big thing. One of those people was producer Kim Fowley. Fowley had a crazy idea. He wanted to create an all-female teenage rock band that played loud, aggressive music at a time when rock was dominated by men. He already had guitarist Joan Jett and drummer Sandy West. What he needed was a frontwoman. Then he saw Cherie. She was only 15 years old. She had never fronted a real band before, but Fowley thought she looked like a mix between Brigitte Bardot and David Bowie. That was enough for him. And within weeks, Cherie Currie's entire life changed forever. Cherie showed up for the audition terrified. Joan Jett was standing there. Kim Fowley was watching her closely. And Cherie barely knew what she was doing. She had prepared a song called Fever, but the band refused to play it. For a second, it looked like the audition was over before it even started. But then Kim Fowley suddenly grabbed a notebook and started writing lyrics on the spot. The song was loud, aggressive, and built completely around Cherie's image. Within minutes, they had created Cherry Bomb. A song that would eventually become one of the biggest rock anthems of the decade. And just like that, Cherie Currie became the lead singer of the Runaways. The speed of everything that followed was insane. Within a month, the band signed with Mercury Records. 2 weeks later, they were recording their debut album. Cherie was still in high school. She had never toured before, never handled fame before, never even performed consistently in front of crowds. Suddenly, she was being pushed onto stages across America, dressed in corsets and fishnet stockings, while critics twice her age debated whether the band was groundbreaking or just scandalous. But what made the Runaways different was that they were not pretending. They really played their instruments. They really wrote music. And they played harder and louder than most people expected from teenage girls in 1976. Songs like Cherry Bomb, Queens of Noise, and School Days gave the band a dangerous reputation almost immediately.
Not just one of your toys.
Older audiences were shocked. Parents hated them. Music magazines could not stop talking about them. Some critics praised them as pioneers. Others treated them like a joke. But wait, this next part changes everything. While America stayed divided on the band, Japan completely lost its mind over them. When the Runaways landed in Japan during 1977, the reaction looked like full-blown Beatlemania. Thousands of screaming fans crowded airports and hotels. Television crews followed them everywhere. Their live album Live in Japan became a massive success and eventually went gold. For a brief moment, Cherie Currie looked untouchable. She was 16 years old, internationally famous, touring the world, opening for bands like Van Halen, Ramones, and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Most teenagers worried about homework. Cherie was performing in front of thousands of screaming fans every night. But behind the scenes, things were already getting dark. The band members were still kids surrounded by adults who saw them as products first and teenagers second. Drugs were everywhere. Alcohol was constant. According to several members, cocaine and quaaludes became part of daily life on tour. And Cherie, still barely old enough to understand what was happening, was drowning in it. The fame looked glamorous from the outside, but inside the Runaways, everything was starting to break apart. The girls were exhausted. They toured constantly, barely slept, and were thrown into adult situations they were nowhere near prepared to handle. And according to multiple band members, the people managing them were not protecting them at all. Kim Fowley ran the band with chaos and manipulation. He knew controversy sold records, so he pushed the girls harder and harder into shocking images and dangerous situations. The corsets, lingerie, and hypersexual marketing made headlines everywhere, but people forget something important. Cherie Currie was only 16, and here's where it gets really disturbing. While touring Europe, Cherie became pregnant by the band's road manager. She later revealed she had an abortion after returning to the United States. She was still a teenager trying to survive non-stop touring, addiction, media pressure, and adults who were supposed to protect her. But nobody slowed things down. Instead, the pressure inside the band kept building. Creative fights started happening constantly. Some members wanted more control over the music. Others were tired of Kim Fowley's management and the way the band was being portrayed. Money became another major issue. Despite their growing fame, the members later claimed they were barely paid. And then came the moment that finally destroyed everything. During a photo shoot in 1977, tensions exploded into a physical confrontation between band members. After years of non-stop pressure, Cherie hit her breaking point. On August 9, 1977, she quit the band completely. Just like that, it was over. She was 17 years old. Think about that for a second. Most people at 17 are still figuring out who they are. Cherie Currie had already become world famous, battled addiction, toured internationally, survived exploitation, and walked away from one of the most controversial rock bands in America. But leaving the band did not save her. In some ways, it made things worse. After the Runaways, Cherie tried rebuilding her career through solo music and acting. In 1978, she released her solo album, Beauty's Only Skin Deep. Later, she teamed up with her twin sister Marie to form a duo. Their cover of Since You've Been Gone even reached the Billboard charts. For a moment, it looked like Cherie might actually escape the shadow of the Runaways. Then Hollywood came calling. In 1980, she starred alongside Jodie Foster in the film Foxes. Critics noticed her immediately. She looked natural on screen, confident, charismatic. More acting roles followed, including Parasite, Wavelength, and appearances on shows like Murder, She Wrote, and Matlock. It should have been the beginning of a comeback. Instead, it became the beginning of her collapse, because the drugs she started around the Runaways never really left her life. Cocaine turned into freebasing. The addiction became more intense, more destructive. Meetings were missed. Opportunities disappeared. By the mid-1980s, Cherie later admitted she was so deep into addiction, she could barely function normally anymore. And then something happened that almost ended her life completely. By the mid-1980s, Cherie Currie was living a completely different life from the one fans imagined. The teenage rock star image was still famous, but the real Cherie was struggling badly behind closed doors. The acting opportunities that once looked so promising were slowly disappearing. Auditions became harder to manage. Professional relationships started falling apart. Addiction was taking over everything. And the terrifying part is how fast it happened. Only a few years earlier, she had been standing in front of thousands of screaming fans in Japan. Now she was fighting just to keep her own life together. But what if I told you the most dangerous moment of her life had nothing to do with drugs or rock music? One night, around 2 years after leaving the Runaways, Cherie was approached by a man driving a limousine. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The man acted polite, calm, friendly. Cherie later admitted she ignored her instincts because she did not want to seem rude. So, she got into the car. That decision nearly got her killed. At some point during the encounter, Cherie realized something was horribly wrong. She managed to escape before anything worse happened. Later, according to her own account, the man was reportedly connected to the murders of several women in Texas. Think about how insane that is. Cherie Currie survived one of the most chaotic eras in rock history, only to narrowly escape a possible serial killer afterward. And for years, almost nobody knew the full story. But even after surviving that nightmare, the addiction still followed her everywhere. The cocaine use became heavier through the early 1980s. Freebasing made everything worse. Her health suffered. Her career slowed down even more. And one of the cruelest things about addiction is that it does not just steal the years when you are using. It changes the entire direction of your future. Cherie later revealed that around age 24, she finally began trying seriously to get sober. But it was not some clean Hollywood recovery story where everything suddenly became perfect overnight. There were relapses, setbacks, bad decisions, moments where she nearly lost herself again. And here's something important most people overlook. Cherie never tried pretending she had everything figured out afterward. She spoke openly about sobriety being a lifelong battle instead of a magical ending. She once described addiction as a liar that never fully disappears. That honesty made a lot of former fans connect with her even more years later. Slowly, she started rebuilding her life piece by piece. One of the biggest turning points came when she began working at Coldwater Canyon Hospital in North Hollywood. She worked with patients dealing with addiction and psychiatric struggles. Unlike most counselors, Cherie understood exactly what many of those young people were experiencing because she had survived it herself. That work changed her. For years, she helped addicted teenagers while also working as a fitness trainer and trying to create stability in her own life. There was no huge comeback headline at that point, no dramatic return to superstardom. It was quieter than that. But honestly, that may have been the strongest thing she ever did. Because rebuilding a destroyed life without cameras watching is much harder than becoming famous in the first place. And then, just when people thought the story of Cherie Currie was basically over, something unexpected happened. Hollywood came back. For years, Cherie Currie felt like a forgotten piece of rock history. Older fans remembered Cherry Bomb. Hardcore music fans remembered the Runaways as pioneers. But outside those circles, most people had no idea what happened to the teenage girl who once looked destined to become one of the biggest stars in rock music. Then everything changed again in 2010. Hollywood released The Runaways, a film based on the rise and collapse of the band. Dakota Fanning played Cherie, Kristen Stewart played Joan Jett, and suddenly a whole new generation discovered the story. But here's the crazy part. When Cherie first learned Dakota Fanning would portray her, she reportedly collapsed onto her kitchen floor crying. Not because she was upset, because she could not believe anyone still cared enough to tell her story. And the movie did something important. It forced people to finally look past the image. For decades, the Runaways had often been reduced to headlines about lingerie, controversy, and teenage rebellion. But the film showed something darker underneath all of it. These were kids. Famous kids, yes, but still kids. Teenagers surrounded by drugs, manipulation, exploitation, and adults who often treated them more like products than human beings. The movie also reopened old wounds between Cherie and Joan Jett. After Cherie left the band in 1977, the two barely spoke for decades. Joan believed Cherie abandoned the group. Cherie believed Joan wanted her gone. Neither of them fully understood what the other had been feeling back then because they never actually talked about it. But during the making of the film, they finally sat down together and cleared the air after more than 30 years. And here's where it gets wild. Around the same time, Cherie released an expanded version of her autobiography, Neon Angel. Unlike the earlier version from the 1980s, this edition included everything she had previously been forced to leave out. The assault before the band, the pregnancy during touring, the addiction, the manipulation surrounding the Runaways, all of it. For the first time in her life, Cherie Currie told the entire story without anyone censoring it. That took a different kind of courage than standing on stage at 16 years old. Because surviving trauma is one thing. Talking publicly about it decades later is something else entirely. But what happened next might be the strangest chapter of her entire life. Instead of fully returning to Hollywood or chasing mainstream fame again, Cherie found a completely different obsession: chainsaw carving. Seriously. Around the early 2000s, she began creating wood sculptures using chainsaws. What started as a hobby slowly became a real artistic career, and somehow it fit her perfectly. The work was loud, physical, dangerous, and required complete concentration. There was no room for chaos or addiction when handling a chainsaw. Before long, Cherie was competing in professional chainsaw carving competitions across California and placing near the top regularly. She even opened her own art gallery, and for maybe the first time in her entire life, she was creating something completely on her own terms. The chainsaw art world gave Cherie Currie something the music industry never really gave her: control. There were no managers pushing her image, no producers trying to manufacture controversy, no executives deciding how she should look or sound. It was just Cherie, a block of wood, and a chainsaw. And somehow, after everything she survived, that became therapeutic. She entered competitions across California and quickly earned respect inside the carving community. Not because she used to be famous, but because she was genuinely talented. She won awards at multiple world chainsaw art competitions and built a following completely separate from her rock career. Think about how unusual that is. Most former rock stars spend years desperately chasing their old fame. Cherie did the opposite. She built an entirely new identity outside of music, but music never fully left her life either. In 2013, she received the Rock Legend Award at the Malibu Music Awards. And that night, something happened fans never expected to see again. Cherie performed on stage with Lita Ford for the first time in nearly 4 decades. For older Runaways fans, it felt surreal. The band that once shocked America back in the 70s had finally become respected as pioneers. Artists from punk, hard rock, and metal regularly credited the Runaways for opening doors for women in aggressive rock music. Bands that came later could exist partly because teenage girls like Cherie Currie and Joan Jett had already taken the hits from critics years earlier, but there was still pain attached to those memories. In 2006, former Runaways drummer Sandy West died from lung cancer at only 47 years old. Her death hit Cherie hard. Sandy had been there from the beginning, from the tiny clubs, the chaos, the screaming fans in Japan, the endless touring. After Sandy passed away, Cherie created a chainsaw carving in her honor. And according to Cherie herself, it became one of the most meaningful pieces she ever made. That tells you a lot about who she became later in life. Not someone obsessed with fame anymore, not someone trying to relive the 70s, just someone trying to honor the people she loved while continuing to move forward. And she did keep moving forward. In 2015, Cherie released the solo album, Reverie, featuring contributions from Lita Ford and her son, Jake Hayes. 4 years later, she released BOVDs of Splendor. Heavier rock album that included appearances from Slash and Billy Corgan. That album mattered for one big reason. It proved Cherie Currie was not just surviving off nostalgia. She could still make real rock music decades after people assumed her story had ended. And maybe that is the most fascinating part of her entire life. Her story does not fit the normal rock and roll formula. Usually those stories go like this. A musician rises fast, crashes hard, then either dies young or stages a dramatic comeback. But Cherie's story is messier than that. More human. The damage happened early, really early. She was still a child when adults around her turned her into an image and pushed her into a world filled with drugs, exploitation, and pressure. A lot of people never recover from that. Cherie Currie somehow did. Not perfectly, not cleanly, not in some Hollywood movie way where everything suddenly becomes inspirational at the end. She struggled for years. She relapsed. She lost opportunities. She carried trauma for decades. But she kept rebuilding anyway. And honestly, that may be more impressive than the fame itself.